1, representing parts of Scottsdale and Phoenix, Cave Creek, Carefree, Paradise Valley, and Fountain Hills. This debate is sponsored by Clean Elections, the state's nonpartisan voter education agency. My name is Steve Goldstein.
And I'm Danielle Lerner, and we will be co-moderating today's debate. And we are sharing this debate as part of an effort to support democracy in Arizona through a partnership with the Citizens Clean Elections Commission, the Arizona Media Association, and Reister. It is a partnership designed to make these debates accessible to all voters in Arizona.
And that means this debate and dozens more between now and November will air on a long list of local TV stations, radio stations, and digital platforms, including support from local newspapers. It's a shared effort between hundreds of local media brands across Arizona. Now, the format of this debate may be familiar to you, and we've tried to keep the rules simple. Each candidate will have up to 1 minute to make an opening statement, and the same for a closing statement. Candidates are drawing straws to determine the order of each of those portions of this debate. And throughout the debate, we'll pose questions to each candidate, allow them to answer, and then make sure the other candidates have a chance to respond.
Whenever a question is directed to a specific candidate, only that candidate's microphone will be open. At all other times, every microphone will be open. And thank you to voters across Arizona who've submitted questions for this debate. We have reviewed all of them to make sure every voice is heard. However, no candidates have been given advanced access to any of these questions. And additionally, candidates for this race will take part in a speed round at the end of tonight's conversation. Those questions have been given to candidates ahead of time, and they will have just 15 seconds to answer each one.
And with that, let's introduce the Democratic primary candidates for this debate: Marlene Galan-Woods, Rick McCartney, Dr. Amish Shah, and Jonathan Treble. Rick McCartney, you have the first opening statement. You have 1 minute.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here tonight. We appreciate it very much. You know, for nearly 16 years, we have been running the same losing playbook in this district. Candidates who sound the same, they are seeking the same endorsements, they are repeating statements that sound just like DC rhetoric, and that just is a losing playbook. But what we need to do is we need to win, and that's going to take courage. Courage from me, yes, but also courage from voters like you. Voters who are absolutely ready to stop repeating our past mistakes and start winning. We have got to. For 30 years, I have led organizations that have absolutely improved what happens here in our community. Whether it is looking at various problems that we are seeking or things that we are looking at that we have got to solve. Things like housing, affordable housing for youth.
Mr. McCartney, that's your 1 minute opening statement.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much.
That was fast.
Yeah, it goes quick. Marlene Galan-Woods, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. My name is Marlene Galan-Woods. I am the daughter of Cuban immigrants who came to this country with nothing in search of the American dream. I have lived here in the Valley for almost 40 years. I'm a former broadcast journalist and consumer fraud reporter. My late husband, Grant Woods, and I raised 5 kids here. I'm running for Congress because I want to make sure that my parents' American dream is attainable for everyone. I'm running for Congress to ensure that we have an economy that works for all, not just for the very few. I mean, look, let's face it, we are witnessing the most corrupt presidency in our nation's history. And as an investigative reporter, what I can tell you is this: I always had my life's work focused on exposing the truth and holding people accountable. That is exactly what I will do in Washington, D.C., and I hope to earn your vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jonathan Treble, you have 1 minute for your opening statement.
Thank you, Steve and Danielle. I'm Jonathan Treble. Right now, this country is under attack. We have a president who is ignoring the Constitution. We have a Congress that is failing to oversee him. We have courts looking the other way. All the while, corporations are booking record profits without oversight. The economy seems to be going up, but the gains aren't split evenly. And as Arizona families are struggling to keep up, this president starts a war in the Middle East with a $200 billion price tag, and then this Congress says, we're going to take away your health care, and we're going to take away your food stamps for hungry kids. It's outrageous. I fought the health insurance industry 2 years ago to get the life-saving surgery I needed, and I won. And I'm going to bring that fight to Washington to make sure no Arizonan has to fight for their life and fight for their coverage at the same time. I am part of a new generation of leaders who is stepping up to fight, and I will not lay down for anyone.
All right, thank you. And Dr. Amish Shah, you have 1 minute.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. My name is Dr. Amish Shah. I'm an emergency physician. It's been the honor of a lifetime and a privilege to practice medicine for the last 25 years, caring for the sick. In fact, right here in our district, down the street at the Mayo Clinic, as well as a lot of other hospitals, taking care of tens of thousands of patients. I also was a member of the Arizona House of Representatives for 5.5 years, and during my time there, I was one of the most effective legislators. I passed more bills into law than any Democrat in a decade down there, and we are applying for the job at the national legislature. I'm the only candidate on this stage who has had elected office experience. I did this in a different way, an unorthodox way. I went and knocked on doors personally, 27,000 doors, and I'm sure many of you out there watching remember when I was at your door. My biggest issue is that the Trump administration is simply violating the Constitution of the United States and desecrating it, and I'm going to hold him to account.
All right, thank you, Dr. Shah. Let's get right into it and talk about Arizona's 1st Congressional District, certainly one of the nation's most competitive House races. And really the outcome here could play a role in who has control of Congress. And so, Mr. McCartney, I'll start with you. You touched on your background a bit in your opening statement, but what in your background or experience makes you most appealing to the district's independents and moderates?
For 30 years, I have been working with Republicans, independents, and certainly Democrats, doing business, sitting at the table across from them, negotiating various deals, policy, things along the lines of housing, affordable access to health care. These are the things that I think that we need to be focused on when we look at a general election. I am the only candidate that has lived in this district for 30 years, raised my family in this district. I built my business from this district. And that kind of work, that experience is what will get us through the general. Something we have not done, as I said earlier, in 16 years in this district, 7 cycles. It is important that we understand and know the policies, the issues that we are facing now. Some of my opponents have been in the legislature. They have done things, wonderful things for this community. But the reality is the issues that we're facing right now, housing, certainly what's going on with the Trump administration and fighting for our rights, those are the kinds of things that we need to not listen to what somebody is going to say they're going to do, but look at what they've done. And as I say, I have a track record for setting those policies.
And Mr. Treble, I defer to you on this one as well. You argued that Washington needs new leadership. And so my question to you, what specifically do the more experienced candidates represent that you would do differently?
Look, we do need a new generation of leaders in Washington. Everyone knows it. And I'm not a politician who's run for things several times. I'm not somebody who's reading a DC playbook. I'm running again because I fought the health insurance industry 2 years ago, and I won when I needed life-saving care. And right now, the stakes couldn't be higher. The cost of living is outrageous, and young people across this district, they feel it acutely because they can't buy homes. I'm sure we'll talk about housing in this debate today. But that's one area that I can focus on. But the cost of living is much broader than that, and I think you need to have experience with it. My business, I've actually brought the cost of things down in my business for millions of people across the country. And people are looking for real experience, to Rick's point, real chops, a track record of getting things done. I've certainly gotten a lot of things done in my tenure with my company, and those skills are transferable to Washington, D.C. Now, this new generation of leaders, and we're seeing this across the country, they are pushing for bold reform and bold action, and I am too. Medicare for all, universal child care, reversing the Donald Trump tax cuts that were really in favor of billionaires and corporations, and instead using those tax cuts on the middle class, who need it the most, and who are actually going to spend that tax cut money and help the economy. We need to call for bold leadership because now is the time, and the urgency is here. As I almost succumbed to an illness because I couldn't get the care I needed, millions of people are literally going through this every single day. So we do need a new generation of leaders. I am one of those people stepping up. And I think we cannot try the same thing twice and expect a different result in this district.
Ms. Galan-Woods and Dr. Shah, this next question is for the two of you, having run before in 2024. What has changed for you? Ms. Galan-Woods first, you have 2 minutes on it. What changed for you this time around? What makes you a different or better candidate this time around?
Well, look, you're going to hear from the men here with me, you already have, why they think they're the best candidate to take on the Republican nominee. You are not going to hear that from me. You're going to hear from me who Republicans think is the best candidate to take on the Republican nominee. In the last primary election for this seat, 6 of us were running. I was the only one Republicans spent against, attacking me. They didn't spend any money against Amish. Why? They were afraid of me, and they knew that they could beat him. Amish Shah is the only candidate in the country who lost his race, underperformed Kamala Harris, and is now running for re-election. Look, as a journalist, what I'm doing now is I am speaking to independents, I am speaking to Republicans, and I am speaking to Democrats all across the board. People are horrified by what they are seeing in this country, the corruption, the trampling of our Constitution. I have the endorsements of Secretary of State Adrian Fontes and Attorney General Chris Mace, both of whom are running for re-election. Their names are going to be on the ballot in November. They want my name on the ballot with them. Why? Because they trust that I will win, and they trust that I will take this fight on to Washington, D.C.
Dr. Shah, you have 2 minutes. You can respond in part to that. But I want to ask you, what makes you a different candidate or a better candidate this time around?
Well, thank you. I mean, first and foremost, I just want to say all of my time and all of my experience out there at the doors is why I'm here, and because I wanted to speak to those people and understand their concerns. That is something I do that is a fundamental core of who I am and how I've conducted myself in politics. Listening to you, the voter out there, and understanding your concerns. They're telling me clearly what is at stake for them. What is at stake for them is, number one, first and foremost, the Trump administration and how they have been so morally depraved, how they have made life harder for ordinary Americans. And I'm talking specifically with regard to housing, affordability, health care in particular. And those are the issues on which they're hoping for somebody with experience and expertise. And I'm the only one up here to bring that to Washington, D.C. So I want to just make sure we're addressing the voters where they are. I've got 30 endorsements from Democrats, including the last 2 House minority leaders who worked with me, specifically Andres Cano and Lupe Contreras, because they worked with me and they saw how hard I worked and how effective I was at actually getting things done down there in the legislature. So we built a broad coalition of 30-plus Democrats who have endorsed me, but also 3 Republicans who served with me down there and said, you know what, we didn't always agree on priorities, but you served with integrity down there, and we respect that. Not to mention also the Arizona Independent Party. So we've built this broad coalition, and we continue to go out there and focus on the voter and center that person. I think that's what makes somebody a really, really great candidate.
And inflation and affordability certainly top of mind for many voters going into these primaries on both sides of the political aisle. And so when it comes to, families struggling with groceries, childcare costs, all of those issues, Ms. Galan-Woods, I'll start with you on this. Which federal policy do you think could have the greatest impact on lowering some of these everyday costs within the next couple of years?
Look, as you mentioned, people are getting squeezed from every single corner, whether it's the grocery store, the gas station, the pharmacy, everywhere. I understand the struggle quite well. Look, as I mentioned, my parents were immigrants, and I didn't know it at the time as a child, but we grew up poor. There were many nights that we had white rice and fried eggs for dinner because we couldn't afford anything else. And by the way, that was when eggs were cheap. So I understand the struggle. Look, the first thing that we have to do once we win back the House of Representatives is rein in this chaotic tariff policy that this administration has foisted on us and the planet, for that matter. So that has to be step one. We, of course, have to win the House back so that we can do that. But we need to rein in the tariffs immediately, and then we need to tackle some other things. We need to tackle health care. We need to tackle housing. There are all sorts of issues that we need to do, but the first thing that we must do is rein in the tariff policy. Of course, bring back the subsidies to ACA premiums when we're talking about health care and Medicaid cuts and that kind of thing. First step is reining in tariffs.
All right, thank you. And Mr. McCartney, you have said, you've been pretty vocal about Democrats. You've said they've been doing backdoor deals, that they need to listen to the people, really take action. So what does that look like in practice? And how do the residents of CD1 feel the impact of that when it comes to bringing down the cost of living?
I think it comes down absolutely to the cost of living. And the first thing that we need to do, and as soon as we flip this House, is we need to repeal this big, ugly bill. This bill, as you know, took health insurance right out from underneath 400,000 plus people in Arizona, millions of people throughout this country. And we talk about affordability. That is something that absolutely can destroy an entire family. There are things that we have seen through this bill, including taking away food, SNAP, from families that are absolutely destructive. And I think that that's the first thing that we need to do. The second thing we need to do, I think, in talking about tariffs, is we need to impeach Donald Trump. Donald Trump is playing a chess game on the resolute desk on tariffs, and it is something that we cannot pay attention to any longer.
May I ask a quick follow-up to
Sure.
Mr. McCartney on that? That did not go so well for Democrats in the House in the past because Donald Trump was able to convince enough of the public that the Democrats had overshot. Is that really what you want to go into the House saying right away, I'm not necessarily going to work with the other side, I want to impeach this guy?
I think that what we will find in this election when we flip this House is that we absolutely need to spend that time. It is time for us to hold power to account. We must. That is what we have gotten ourselves into here. I have said that Democrats have not taken enough action, as we just talked about. It is something that we have got to do. I have been doing town halls all over this community. I mean, we have done 28 town halls in 13 weeks, and we are taking every single question. There are no barriers, and the first thing that we talk about is what we need to do when we get to Washington. And when we talk about impeachment, we have had people stand up and say, is that really what we think we need to do? Do we want to pay the taxpayer? Do we want to spend the taxpayers' money on something that we haven't seen work before? I think we have to. If we don't, we are not doing our job as representatives. It's critical.
15 seconds on this. Dr. Shah, would you vote to impeach Donald Trump?
I agree with Rick. Actually, he's saying the right thing. What he's saying is that we have to have some moral clarity here. Right is right and wrong is wrong. He has violated the United States Constitution on multiple occasions. I mean, I could just go through the trying to demote Mark Kelly, and that's in the text of the Constitution, that senators and representatives can say what they want. Jimmy Kimmel in the First Amendment, due process in the courts. All of this just keeps happening. And if we don't hold somebody to account, we're just saying it's okay to violate the supreme law of the land. And that's not right.
Mr. Treble, yay or nay on impeachment?
Donald Trump absolutely deserves to be impeached, and it will be one of the first things I believe we will do in the Democratic majority. But I think we also need to focus on the cost of living, and I'd love to answer that question too, because that is something that I know families are immediately struggling with.
Sure, go ahead. 1 minute on cost of living.
You know, my opponents will like to say that they can just roll back the clock on the big, beautiful bill and that everything will be okay, going back 2 years and take tariffs away. We need to go further than that, because 2 years ago, the cost of living still wasn't good for this district for families. So yes, we have to take tariffs off, but in healthcare, we need to go way further. Medicare for all will actually bring down costs tremendously for Arizona families. And for people that say we can't afford it, why are we paying $200 billion for a war in the Middle East, which could easily cover it for years? Medicare for all will bring costs down, and I actually believe we need universal child care, universal pre-K. I have friends in the district who are raising 2 boys at 2 and 4 years old, are paying $2,800 a month for daycare, more than the cost of their single-family home. That is outrageous, and that shows our values are out of whack. So universal child care is a great example of us going even further than turning the clock back 2 years.
And real quick, I'd love all of your response to this next question. We can go about 30 seconds each to give everyone time. But when we talk about government programs, are there certain programs that you would be willing to reform, reduce, or even eliminate as a way to help control federal spending? And Ms. Galan-Woods, we can start with you and just kind of go down the row here.
Let's recognize what this administration did with DOGE. They cost us $20 billion. It was supposed to be some sort of cost-cutting measure, but instead what they did is cost us more money and dismantle just about every department in our government. And so what I would say is that we need to take a scalpel to different programs, not a chainsaw.
Donald Trump and his billionaire buddies would like you to believe that government doesn't work, and the way they're doing that is by ensuring that it can't. So they are taking things away from Social Security offices so that people can't get their checks. They have dismantled the Department of Education. I think that we need to stop saying things like it's time for us to tax the billionaires, and it is time for us to look at ways that we can think about things like health care instead of bombs. We also must look at our tax code. I think a lot of the things that we need to be messaging come down to these loopholes.
Dr. Shah?
I mean, there's a lot of things I would undo. I mean, first of all, he's trying to put a $1.8 billion slush fund out there for people who might have ransacked the Capitol. I mean, some of this stuff just is absurd on its face. The other thing that absolutely needs reform is ICE. So we have an agency out there that was given, folks were given 6 weeks of training and a gun, and then what you saw was what happened to Alex Priddy and Renee Good. And that's unacceptable behavior. So we do need to enforce the immigration laws, but this is not the way to do it.
Mr. Treble?
As I mentioned before, if we can find $200 billion to bomb a country that helps us zero and actually adds cost to us, we can find more money for the important policies that we need, like health care and daycare. And yes, we should look at our defense budget. The Pentagon has never passed an audit. That should tell us something. And as Trump is, retrofitting a Qatari jet for $1 billion, where does that money come from? So yes, there are absolutely things, and I as a business owner have reshuffled budgets before to make sure that we get the right priorities straight. We can absolutely do that in Congress.
We're going to get to housing in a minute, but I want to balance something with environmental needs and uses and employment and whatnot. Dr. Shah, let me start with you. 1 minute on this. Data centers have caused a lot of angst in Arizona and across the country, in part in Arizona because of the environmental impact, how much water, how much energy will be used. If you were in Congress, how hard would you fight against data centers if your constituents said, we don't want them here?
You have to listen to the voters in the district, and they have made very clear that they do not appreciate that an entity would come in and then suddenly they would have to pay more in the face of the affordability crisis, pay more for electricity, and use a precious resource, our water, here where we're living in the desert. So you have to pay attention to what your voters want, and they're telling us this very, very clearly. Of course, we are going to see technology. We have become a technology hub, and I'm glad for it. I don't think that economics like growth and opportunities for our people do not have to conflict with environmental priorities necessarily. So we've got to make sure that we can do both, but that's what a Democrat does, is make sure that those priorities are balanced rather than just giving in to corporate interests.
Okay. Ms. Galan-Woods, how would you balance that?
Look, we're not going to put the AI genie back in the bottle. But as far as data centers are concerned, they need to be good stewards and good members of the community and members of Congress. And in Congress, we need to hold them accountable. They need to be water neutral. This idea that just take an example in Goodyear, one data center uses as much water in a year as 680 families in that same town. So that's wrong. So we need to have them be water neutral. They need to contribute to the infrastructure, and they absolutely must contribute to the infrastructure of the electric grids that they are using, because we cannot allow our working families to keep paying. They are holding the bag on this right now, and in Congress, that's what we need to do.
And real quick, because water is such a big issue, Mr. McCartney, when it comes to water security, how would you be a different leader in this area? What differentiates you from the others?
I think the first thing we have to do is we have to focus on conservation. I say it in all of my town halls. That's something we don't spend enough time or awareness on, and it's very important in a state like ours with the drought and what we see happening coming down the road. But the other thing we have to do is we have to look at different technologies. There are things that we've seen in the Middle East. There is a plant here in Carefree that's going to go online in about 9 months, and it's a reclamation plant that is due to serve in the grid about 30,000 homes on an annual basis. That's important. That's the city of Phoenix. I think on a federal level, we need to be focused on those same kinds of programs. I think when we think of desalination and working with San Diego and working with Mexico so that we can pull water from the Sea of Cortez, there are some ways for us to budget for that based on our use of the Colorado River water. Right now, we are definitely suffering. We do not have the upper hand with what's going on through these lawsuits with the 8 other states that are taking water from the Colorado River. So I think that we have got to work very hard as municipalities and the people of this state to fight. I think we're going to end up in lawsuits on this because the federal government is not getting enough done.
Mr. Treble, real quick, about 30 seconds when it comes to water and water security.
You know, water is incredibly important, and it is an existential crisis. You know, I have actually sat around a table with Senator Mark Kelly, a 4th-generation farmer, and with a tribal leader, as Mark has explained, with nuance, how the Colorado River negotiations and the drying up is going to affect us. And I really respect his leadership, and I've tried to dig in here too, and I've reached out to tribal leaders. You see, our tribes have senior water rights over other states. We need to bring them into negotiations, and we will all do better as Arizonans if they are shoulder to shoulder with us in those negotiations. So that's one thing we can do, is have a strong negotiator. We absolutely need a strong negotiator at the table for our Colorado River water.
Of course, housing intertwined with all of these issues that we've already discussed. A little bit of breaking news here, I suppose. Earlier today, just hours ago, Congress did pass a bill aimed at lowering housing costs through a variety of measures. It's headed to President Trump's desk now. And so I'd love to get each of your reactions to that and to let us know, do you think that goes far enough, or how does that adjust your priorities in this area? Mr. Treble, we'll start with you.
Yeah, and that bill is a good step in the right direction. It was great to see it pass the House just hours ago with broad bipartisan support. Housing is incredibly important. I have friends who are trying to be first-time home buyers. They feel like they are priced out. We need more bold action. I do not think it goes far enough. It did not expand LIHTC, low-income housing tax credits. It did not do anything for workforce housing. Those are 2 big misses in this bill because we need to do better. You know, rents here in Arizona have gone up over 50% in 5 years, and families are struggling with that expense, and a lot of people are being priced out of the housing market.
All right, Mr. McCartney, your thoughts on the bill, and does it go far enough?
No, I think it's a very good start. The Road to Housing bill is something that is focused on changing laws within different zones, zoning laws. It is also something that is going to work to help developers find great ways to build in areas that are close to transportation, which can really make a big difference. We've had an awful lot of zoning issues and things that have kept builders from being able to build good, solid properties. There are some things within this bill that are going to allow people to spend less on deposits for homes. There is another thing that I think is so important, and that's not allowing corporations to have the first stab at our neighborhoods. That is so impossible for us to be able, for young families to be able to get into these homes. And as you know, it is driving up costs. And so we have got to set regulation. This bill is a very good start. It really is. It's why it's a bipartisan bill. We saw it pass the Senate and now the House. And so it will get signed into law. And I'm a big believer that it'll help us a lot.
Thank you. Ms. Galan-Woods, you have a minute to answer that question.
Thank you. My parents, as I told you, came to this country with nothing. And by the time I was 14 years old, they were able to build a small home in Tampa, Florida, where my mother still lives. That's unattainable right now. The average age of a first-time home buyer is 40. 40. Look, I think the bill is a good start. I'm glad that Republicans are waking up to this need. That's a great start, and I'm happy about that. But we need to do more. And one area in which we can do more is algorithmic price fixing that is going on. Our Attorney General has already been tackling that here in Arizona. But we've got landlord conglomerates who are using algorithmic price fixing to honestly screw over people who are trying to get into an apartment, and that is why we have kids who get out of college who are still having to live with their parents and not able to get their own place, and we need to make sure that we do better.
Dr. Shah, thoughts on housing affordability?
You know, this is for all those people out there in their 20s and 30s who have just told me over and over again. Some of them are on my staff, and they're telling me, you know, we don't have the opportunities you did in your generation because I can't move out, I can't afford a house, and the rents are just too high. And I got to agree with them, because when I first moved here to the Valley, it was around 15 years ago, I picked up a house in Scottsdale that was less than $1,500, 3 bedrooms and a pool for rent. And now you can't even do double that as the monthly rent. So I feel while I was in the legislature, we did expand the low-income housing tax credit. We put hundreds of millions into the housing trust fund. I proudly voted for those things. But absolutely what these guys said, we have to do more. It has to go beyond that to allow the government Congress has the power of the purse, and we can allocate more money to make sure that building is done to increase supply, because the core issue in this district is going to be supply and demand. We just don't simply have enough supply, and so prices are going up.
Ms. Galan-Woods, I'm going to make the presumption that everyone on this stage believes in some form of climate change. Correct me if I'm wrong. We've already entered wildfire season in Arizona. We're seeing potential folks in Sedona having to leave their homes.
Yeah.
And at the federal level, talk about the power of the purse, at the federal level, there are cutbacks in fighting wildfires. If you were to be elected to Congress, how big a priority would that be for you? And what actions would you take to protect Arizona to make sure there is federal funding for the inevitable wildfires we're going to see?
Look, our public lands are so important. And by the way, I do want to start here. Public lands are not for sale. I know that Donald Trump would like to come in and maybe put up a golf course or put up a condominium in some of our public lands, and absolutely not. In Arizona alone, we have 12 million acres of public lands. And not only the Grand Canyon and places like that where we love to visit and rest, but this is a real economic boom for Arizona. $5 billion a year to our economy. So we must absolutely protect our public lands. We have to protect, and look, speaking of the problems that are being caused at these national parks, this administration has indiscriminately fired thousands of workers all over our public parks. These are people who are consumer-facing, but also taking care of the lands. And so now they're less safe. They're not being maintained the way that they should. So we must restore the funding that this administration has stripped from our public lands and make sure that they're safe and make sure that our forests are being protected.
Mr. Treble, let's go to you second on that one. And let me remind people what happened at the North Rim of the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, the destructive fire that happened there. So you have a minute to talk about that.
Okay. Yeah, and I had just brought my daughter to the Grand Canyon 2 weeks before that North Rim fire. And so that hit home, and that was devastating. I enjoy Arizona with my daughter as much as I can, driving through northern and southern Arizona. And our public lands aren't for sale. And we need to make sure that this administration stops neglecting them and stops trying to do deals to put private enterprise on them and drilling them in Alaska, for example. I want to bring in a hearing Russell Vought and hold him to the fire for cutting the budget for the U.S. Forest Service that's led to more wildfires, cut the budget for the Bureau of Land Management. We need more action on this, and we need to hold them to account. Donald Trump and Russell Vought, they are literally trying to sell our lands. They're making them less safe, more prone to wildfires. I think they need to be brought and dragged in front of Congress, and they need to answer questions about it.
Dr. Shah, I'd love to get your input on funding for wildfire prevention, but also when it comes to public land protection, how should Congress be balancing conservation with renewable energy projects and responsible resource development?
Well, I want to get back to a little bit of what you talked about before on climate change. I just want to reiterate this, that I hope all of us agree to this, that is an existential threat. And all of these things keep getting worse, including the fires, including the water crisis, because we are not addressing the underlying cause. Some of the folks on the other side don't believe in it, and that's coming straight from science and scientists. It's why years and years ago, as a kid who was younger, looking at these two parties, I became a Democrat long time ago. And I think you've just got to say to yourself, if we don't address root causes, we're not getting to this. So absolutely, yes. While we were in the state legislature, again, took a lot of time to supplant all the monies that we use to do firefighting, wildlife firefighting all across the state. And the state legislature bore a lot of the responsibility. But yes, we could absolutely use federal help coming in to make sure that locally, our local folks are able to fight all those fires.
Mr. McCartney, your thoughts on that? 1 minute.
Yes, I would agree with what we've heard here. We absolutely have to invest in mitigating wildfires. We must do that. The monies have been stripped away from this state. I also think from a climate standpoint, that we can empower this community, this state, this district with an economic element to climate. We have been the founding district for solar. This is a place where we have got all kinds of sun, and I always talk about, you can go to Denver and different cities and you can find solar street lamps, and we have nothing of the kind here. These are the kinds of things that I think we can do to build up this industry. I think building materials, including building with new, more sustainable materials. We're not seeing enough of that in this district.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Galan-Woods?
Responding to what was the original question?
Yeah, well, we had talked about wildfire prevention, but also that question about how Congress can balance renewable energy projects and responsible resource development.
So here's another thing the Trump administration has done, the public land rule, which requires the Bureau of Land Management to consider conservation and development equally. These people have scrapped that, and it's outrageous. It is outrageous. So we need to get that rule back into place. I think as members of Congress, what we need to do is pass legislation to protect our public lands. And also, I don't want to forget to say this, is that we need to respect tribal sovereignty, because that is going by the wayside at this point.
Mr. McCartney, let's move on to something that was briefly mentioned by Dr. Shah, but I want to dig in a little more deeply on this. Sure. Immigration policy. I want to make sure we get to a question about the deeper, what methods can be done. But let's talk about ICE for 1 minute. What ICE did in the interior of the country, and there were a number of people, really from all across the political spectrum, who were concerned about what ICE was doing that led to the deaths of multiple U.S. citizens. What would you do to rein in ICE? And let me ask it this way. What if there were people in your district who said, now, wait a second, I like some immigration enforcement. How do you balance with what the duties of immigration enforcement are with what people are not liking as much about what ICE does?
I think they're two different subjects. I think we have to absolutely rip up ICE. What ICE is doing in our communities is fearful. It is absolutely against due process of law, and it is completely un-American. I think we need to defund it, and I think we need to focus on reforming what they are about. I sat in a hearing where I listened to family members who had told stories about their family members that were in detention centers, that were truly incarcerated. They were not detained, they were being incarcerated. We heard from those families and just the atrocities that were happening within those detention centers. But then after we heard from those families, we've heard from attorneys who said, I can't even get in touch with my client who is being detained. Then after that, judges are saying there is no process of law, let alone due process of law. So I think we absolutely have to rip up ICE. And then when it comes to our borders and immigration, yes, I think we do need strong borders. I think that strong borders and adhering to the laws at our borders is very important, but not with the cruelty and the unusual punishment that we're seeing where they're ripping up families.
Mr. Treble, let me give you 1 minute on this. To balance out, if your constituents say, I'm offended by ICE, but I want immigration enforcement, where do you find the balance?
Look, we need to have strong borders, especially to stop the flow of fentanyl into this state and this country. It's a crisis. But we also need to have an effective and a decent immigration policy. And ICE has broken so many laws. They have disrespected so many people in the community. I don't think that they have a big job in our country. I think we can put restrictions on ICE to make them go after what they said they would, the worst of the worst criminals, not peaceful members of our community. We all know the story of them apprehending a mother walking a child to kindergarten here in Arizona and throwing her in an unmarked van. That's not something that should sit well with anybody. I don't care if you're a Democrat, Independent, or Republican. They are going after peaceful people in our communities, and that needs to stop. So we in Congress, we can attach strong restrictions on ICE. No more face masks. Respect the rule of law. We need more training. And they can't go into people's homes without warrants. That is abhorrent. So that's what I would do. I would attach strong restrictions to ICE and realize that they have a better job at our border and going after the worst of the worst.
Dr. Shah, along these same lines, if Congress could pass just one immigration reform bill in the next 2 years, what should it be?
Well, Americans want an immigration system that is humane, that is orderly, that is fair, And I'm sorry, that's not what this administration is doing at all. I have worked in the ER for quite some time, and I have seen personally people who lost their lives because of fentanyl, have had to pronounce them dead. And it's a tough thing to go in and talk to their family members and tell them that an entire life with a lot of promise has been snuffed out because of this. That's why we need to enforce that border and stop the trafficking of fentanyl and these drugs that are coming in. And yes, any of the crime that's coming across. That's got to be the priority that we put forward, because that's what Arizonans have told us resoundingly again and again. So, then if we can just do also the legal part of this and smooth it out, because there's a backlog there, a pathway forward for DACA folks, as well as a guest worker program that used to work in this state, and make sure that we had a policy that helped our business community and our consumers.
All right, thank you, Dr. Shah. And Ms. Galan-Woods, I want to make sure that we hear from you on this. So 1 minute, what would be your priority when it comes to immigration reform, and what specific steps would you take to get there?
Look, let's remember what Donald Trump said. Donald Trump said he was going to remove the worst of the worst. He continues to tell that lie on a daily basis. Republicans allow him to tell that lie on a daily basis. I take this quite personally. My late husband and I adopted a baby from Guatemala 22 years ago. She's a student at the U of A, and she has to carry a copy of her passport in her bag at school because it's okay to racially profile people in this country now. It's sick. It is sick what's going on. We need to pass comprehension immigration reform. We need to secure, I'm all for securing borders. I am all for humane immigration reform. The one thing, we need to have dreamers have a pathway to citizenship. They are in danger as we speak right now because of what this administration is doing to the system. Where dreamers are concerned, they would like to ship off people who have been here since they were 5 years old to a country that they don't know. And that is inhumane, it's wrong, and we need grown-ups in the room to pass comprehensive immigration reform.
If I could respond to that, please.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. You know, Marlene, I understand what you're saying. I'm raising a biracial daughter as well. And I don't want her to have a passport or documentation on her. But I clearly remember you standing behind Jan Brewer in 2010, cheering her on. You were happy she had won. This was 6 months after she signed SB 1070 into law, the most racist law in our state's and potentially our country's history. So saying that about immigration today, you helped start this problem that we're in right now.
That is simply not true. And so here's what I will tell you. My late husband and I could not have been more vocal opposing 1070. We could not, and listen, pick up an Arizona Republic from that time and you will see it. It was reported on. And excuse me, I'm speaking.
Let her finish.
And those are the facts. The fact of the matter is that we were the most vocal folks. I heard him shouting on the phone to her about 1070. The idea that I would support policy that would racially profile anyone is a cynical political attack from a politician.
Okay, we have very little time left. I want to have a 30-second response from each of you. Dr. Shah, let me start with you. We're seeing in Maricopa County right now fights over elections. We're seeing the recorder fight with the Board of Supervisors. Beyond election law, what would you, as a member of Congress, do to help restore trust to those voters who are wondering what's going on with our system, even if they don't have any real cause to?
We've heard from the other side. First of all, Americans want a free and fair system that allows them to vote. We have heard from the other side here in this state all kinds of absurd claims that have no basis in fact. I dealt with that at the legislature again and again. We are the state with the cyber ninjas, and we had fake electors here that I'm glad are being prosecuted. At least I think are being prosecuted. We have to be the ones to say we want free and fair elections to allow you to vote, and are not the ones who are questioning the results after they're done.
Okay, Mr. McCartney, 30 seconds, but there are still a lot of people, even if it's been proven wrong by judges and whatnot, who still are wondering about things. How do you help restore trust? What's the first step you take?
Look, I went to Washington, D.C., and I met with members of Congress when they were doing the district redistricting in California, because I was very concerned that the redistricting, when we saw it in Texas and then in California, that it was going to just start this wildfire around this country. And I went and I talked to them, and they convinced me that what they were doing in California was really based on what we do right here in Arizona. It was a fair and equitable commission that was focused on what we do. I think we need to expand that, not just redistricting, but also our voter laws, our rules, what it is that we're doing when it comes to the vote. They need to be independent. Politics needs to be removed from it entirely, because what we see on the Republican side is all politics.
Yep, all right. Thank you. Ms. Galan-Woods, your thoughts on this?
First of all, we all believe that only American citizens should vote. We all believe that. That is the law as it is today. The SAVE Act, which is what the Trump administration would like to pass, would disenfranchise voters all over this country, including women like me with a hyphenated name, or women who have taken their husband's name, and you can't match up a birth certificate, and it would take the red tape that they're putting people through to change, to have them not be able to vote. Look, the bottom line here is we need to pass a John Lewis voting rights bill the second that we can. That is how we save this.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Treble, your thoughts on this issue?
Look, there are some people that doubt our elections. We've seen no evidence of voter fraud here in Arizona, or really any place in this country. And I think one thing we need to do to make sure we have integrity in our elections is make sure that ICE doesn't get within 5 miles of a polling station in this upcoming election and in the 2028 election, because Donald Trump is already floating the idea, and we need to make sure they don't get anywhere close to a polling site.
Okay, yes or no, because we have lightning round coming up. Yes or no, as close as you can get. I know you're going to want to do more than that. Ms. Galan-Woods, if you wouldn't win this primary, would you support any of these other gentlemen in the general?
Absolutely.
Okay. Mr. McCartney?
Absolutely.
Dr. Shah?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, well, there you have it. And we are now going to shift into the speed round. As we mentioned before, the candidates have been given these questions ahead of time, and they have just 15 seconds to answer each one. And so we'll ask the question, and we'll just go down the row each time. So Ms. Galan-Woods, we'll start with you. What is your most important issue on day one?
Day one is reining in tariffs. We need to bring the cost of food and other items down, and that's the first thing that we can do.
Mr. McCartney.
It is absolutely repeal the big ugly bill. We have got to. That has pulled health care out from underneath the lives of people. It has taken food out of people's mouths. It is set in 2027 to impair Medicaid. This is something that needs to be dealt with immediately the minute I get to Washington.
Dr. Shah.
I agree with both of those, but again, I completely. But the attacks on the Constitution of the United States and the Bill of Rights by the Trump administration and its multiple violations have to be the reason we go down there. We're trying to save the entire system itself. We won't be able to get to some of these other issues if we can't save the basic system. In the ER, we call that stopping the hemorrhage.
Thank you. Mr. Treble.
Agreeing with all of those priorities, we also need to take on Trump's corruption. Trump and his family have enriched themselves by the billions of dollars, and we need to immediately hold hearings and bring them and cabinet members into Congress and ask tough questions and shine a flashlight. And we need to pass federal legislation that bars any president or presidential family member from engaging in government funding.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. McCartney, question number 2,
Yes.
15 seconds. What is a win for this district you believe only you can secure?
I believe it's flipping this seat. We have got to do that in the general election. I am the only candidate that knows Republicans, Independents, and Democrats. I've worked with them for 30 years in this district, and it is going to take those people in order for us to win, something we have not done in the last 7 cycles.
Ms. Galan-Woods?
I will make sure that every girl and woman in this country has power over her own body, regardless of what zip code she lives in, and I'm proud to have the endorsement of Planned Parenthood.
Okay. Dr. Shah?
It's going to be health care because I've been practicing medicine for a long time. I was the ranking member on the Health and Human Services Committee. While I was also in the legislature, I was the one who stopped a bill that would have banned mifepristone, the abortion pill, and for that I won the Women's Health Champion Legislator of the Year award. So we're going to make sure every American has universal health care.
Mr. Treble, 15 seconds.
For me, it's Medicare for all. We can't just keep saying universal health care and political lines and incrementalism that doesn't move the ball forward. Medicare for all is the bold change we need to bring prices down, make sure everybody has access to health care, and that will literally save lives in this country by the millions.
All right, Ms. Galan-Woods, 15 seconds. How will you balance the demanding schedule in D.C. with being present and also accessible to the people in your district?
Listen, I raised 5 kids while both my husband and I were working full-time, and they are grown, and this district will be tired of seeing me. I will have that many town halls.
Mr. McCartney.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I've done since April 8th is 28 town halls in just a few weeks. I think coming back and forth every single weekend and doing those town halls, setting them up, taking questions. I have committed to the people that we've been talking to, thousands of people through my town halls, that we will be back to do this because that's what representation is all about in this district.
Dr. Shah.
Over the last 9 years or so, I've been knocking 27,000 doors, serving in the legislature, as well as working in the emergency department. So people know that I've put a lot of time and effort into this because to me, it's the passion that drives me, that I want to make sure you feel cared for, the voter at home.
All right, and Mr. Treble.
I'm raising a young daughter in this district, so you better believe I'll be on the first flight home on Thursday to spend time with her and to spend time with constituents here, holding town halls, having meetings. That's the role of a congressman. We have to be in this district talking to people.
Ms. Galan-Woods, I get the easy one. What do you love most about Arizona?
Oh, well, it's tough because there's a lot to love. But I love the hikes near my house, and I love the sunsets.
Mr. McCartney?
Yes, I will agree with that, absolutely. But I would say opportunity. We are the land of opportunity here. Building business, invention. It is absolutely a great place for us to grow and prosper.
Dr. Shah, 15 seconds on this.
What I enjoy the most about Arizona is the warm, welcoming nature of its people. When I moved here about 15 years ago, I found people who were tough, strong, independent-minded, and just willing to accept newcomers, and I really love that about this place.
Mr. Treble.
Ditto for me. I started coming down here over a decade ago and fell in love with this place and decided this is where I wanted to raise my daughter. And I love being able to walk her to school and walk her home from school, knowing we're in a safe and caring community. That's what I love about this place.
All right, well, thank you to all of you candidates. It is now time for closing statements. So each of you will have 1 minute, and we will keep you to that minute in order to keep us on time. So Marlene Galan-Woods, you have the first the closing statement, excuse me. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. Wow, we have tackled a lot of issues. We have a lot of challenges to face in this country. I know you're tired. We're all tired. But look, I am not going to give up. I am going to be optimistic. I have faith and hope that we can build something better from the rubble that they are leaving us, that we can save Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, that we can build an economy that works for everyone, not just the wealthy. I am really proud of the broad coalition of support that we have garnered and that we have earned in this campaign. Attorney General Chris Mays, Secretary of State Adrian Fontes, and 13 different labor organizations, your firefighter, your teachers, the folks who put groceries on your shelves, they have endorsed me and my race. And why? Because they know that I will win in November, and they know that I will take the job to Washington, D.C. I would be honored to have your vote.
Jonathan Treble, 1 minute for your closing statement.
It's not just that Donald Trump is taking our country in the wrong direction. It's that he's doing it, putting his foot completely down on the gas pedal. And I'm running to pump the brakes on that. We need a strong Democrat to represent this district and to fight in Washington, because enough is enough. This country is going off the rails. And we can't get that done unless we have a real Democrat, a lifelong Democrat who has fought for those values his or her entire life. And in my case, that is me. I am proud that I've earned the most endorsements from sitting state lawmakers who know this job well. They do it at our state capitol, and they trust me and only me in this race to hold the line on our values. And there is urgency here. Donald Trump wants to cancel elections. He will try to do another Jan 6 in 2028. I guarantee it. We need to fight now, and too many people are suffering. So I will be that fighter. I look forward to earning your vote in this election and representing you in Washington.
Dr. Amish Shah, you have 1 minute for your closing statement.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to this. I love these things. They're an exercise in democracy. And I hope you found a candidate here that really resonates with you. I hope it's me. I hope to earn your vote. I am the only candidate up here who has been elected to office in the state of Arizona. And while I was down there, I was very effective. And you can talk to some of the people that are down there at the state legislature, and they will tell you that we got it done. We passed a bunch of bills. We blocked some bills that were absolutely horrible for people of Arizona. I even helped other Democrats, such as Christine Marsh, pass her bill when it came to stopping fentanyl in this state. That's what effectiveness looks like. I've been at your doors for a reason, because I want to do democracy differently. I want to hear directly from you. All those people have my personal cell phone number, and I will happily speak to you on the phone if you have any questions about me, about our policies after this debate. And I hope to bring that policy expertise on healthcare, on economics, and specifically about stopping those constitutional violations to Washington, D.C.
And Rick McCartney, you have 1 minute for your closing
Thank you
statement.
very much. Thank you to all of my opponents for this tonight. I think these debates are quite important. You know, as I said, I have been talking to the people of this district, knocking on doors as well, Amish, and it is very clear that the people of this district want a fresh face. They want somebody that has deep roots in this district. I have said that I have lived in this district for 30 years, raised my family in this district, but I have also worked with nonprofit organizations and done a lot of the work on housing and healthcare, and really changed policy for the better, if I can say, for the people of a district like this. It is a great district. It is very opportune, and I think that if we have somebody that understands how to connect hospitals with healthcare companies, works with innovative companies, tech companies, and has done stuff to uplift business, we can take that to Washington, D.C. It's not the other way around. Washington, D.C. doesn't need to come here. We need to take this amazing district to Washington, D.C., and I would like to be that candidate. Okay. Tonight, I humbly ask you to vote for me and help me in this fight.
All right, terrific. Thank you all for being here very much. And that's all the time we have for this primary debate with Democratic candidates for Arizona's Congressional District 1.
On behalf of our partners at Clean Elections, the Arizona Media Association, Reister, and Sneaky Big Studios, thanks for joining us.